Hey guys, I want to talk about a Netflix special on Love is Blind Season 2. Spoiler alerts if you haven't seen the final episode of this season. So they've already had two seasons of this show. First season was pretty good. They actually had two people got married, and I believe they're still married to this day from what I saw in the reunion. Uh, and then also, I think for the last episode, they have five people going into potentially getting married. So the thing is, kind of quick summary if you haven't seen it or you just want to see what it might be all about. But again, this is spoiler alerts. This is kind of like what I thought about what's happened. So it's kind of like there's 10 women, 10 men. It's kind of like blind dating. You're kind of talking and getting to know them on an emotional level. And so, if you feel like there's a connection, the man proposes just like in real world, but through the walls. And so, like I said, there was five of them that ended up, actually six, but one of them didn't even make it to the final episode. Uh, so I'm just going to be talking about my rankings on the ones that I thought going to the last episode that I thought was going to get married. Um, and comment in there if you prefer to see like reaction on some shows and stuff like that. But um, yeah, I was really shocked on some. But so if I had to put my house or put like $1 million, these were my rankings going into the final episodes, thinking that these guys were going to get married. So I had Shane and Natalie as my number one going to get married. Number two, I thought was pretty wide open. I didn't think there was. I thought a lot of them had issues. There was Dip and Shake. I chose them as number two. Then I thought Sal and Mallory, Ivana and Jared, and then Danielle and Nick. And I was totally off. So obviously, uh, the ninth episode, they start going to the wedding for Danielle and Nick. And so just looking at Nick's, um, like going into the aisle and everything, and he was sweating like crazy. Reminded me of my wedding day a little bit, but I understand if it's hot and you're nervous and stuff like that. But I thought Nick was going to say no, but Danielle was the first one that said yes, and not surprised. I thought she would have said yes, and the way they edit and cut it, they ended on episode 9 that way, and then they left it off at the beginning of episode 10, and it just seemed like Nick was about to say no, but he actually ended up saying yes. So that was my big shock. And a little thing, my wife looked up the spoilers and told me there's only going to be two. And so by the time Danielle and Nick, I was like, oh crap, I would have been really wrong because so I was like, okay, it has to be Shane, Nick, and Natalie. And as we progress, it's not because there was some important editing. They like episode 9. They had their bachelor and bachelorette party, and they did not show some important scenes or didn't even show it at all on the last episode either, talking about their wedding. So we'll skip. I think the next wedding they did show was Dip and Shake, and so I was like, well, if Danielle and Nick got married, and I thought Shake and Dip had some issues because Shake said he wasn't physically attracted to his fiance. I was like, well, then if Danielle and Nick say yes, I don't think, based on what my wife was telling me, then it has to be Shane and Natalie. And so I was like, I had to change my mind that they weren't going to get married based on that reason. So what was interesting, it just seemed like they were going to go through the process the way they edit again. And so they asked Dip first, and she said no. She chose herself, which understandable because the way Shake was telling her that like the date before the bachelor party that he wasn't still physically attracted to her, but was connected to her emotionally. So I wasn't surprised because, like I said, we're trying to narrow it down. So next one, I believe they showed Shane and Allie. So that's where I was like, wow, that's kind of early. Trying reflect in the way they edit stuff. Season one, they had the last couple or the first couple, just like Danielle and Nick, they got married, and then they saved like the best for last, I guess you could say, and they got married. So I was a little concerned because based on that scenario, it didn't look good. So based on body language and everything, Natalie didn't look happy, and Shane didn't have his tux or anything. So they talked about they had a big fight the night before, and they did not show any scenes or anything like that. It sounds like they had a big argument and stuff like that, which I would say everyone usually has some type of fight, and so I thought they would have been like look past that, especially it's the day before their wedding, and so especially it seemed like everything else seemed right, but then the way they edit, Shane loves a lot of compliments and to be reassured, and so the thing is that um, that I didn't know if that might be the reason why he would say no or Natalie would say no, but the way they kind of edit was that Shane might be unsatisfied or unhappy with not getting a lot of compliments that way from Natalie. And so, but Natalie looks sad because she's like, well, we had a big fight and um, we couldn't. He said some hurtful things, and so they didn't really talk about the hurtful things pretty much until after what happens at the altar. And Shane was telling like the producers, I don't really want to talk about it because of what happened the night before. So obviously it must have been pretty bad where the film crew probably never caught it or anything, or they probably did not get permission from Shane and Natalie. I don't know, but it just seemed kind of odd that something that important they didn't show. And so it's kind of odd how both of them said they love each other and all that. And Shane was the first one they asked if he is willing to say I do, which he says yes. And then when it's Natalie's turn, she says no. And I think it was pretty much hung up on the whole night before and all that. She really thought saying no would still buy time and fix things. Um, but if it's just that one night, I feel like if you watch the season before, the first season, uh, Gianna and I forgot the other guy's name. It's slipping out my head, but they were dating. She said yes, but her fiance said no and thought they could work on it after the show. They tried for 2 years. Obviously, I think if you have the emotional connection, I think you should be able to work through it. So, especially if these two couples said that they love each other and all that. So, the way they kind of edit and talk to each other after Natalie said no, she ran off and they tried talking after. I don't know why you did not talk to each other the night before, unless, like I said, Shane was really drunk. And, like, sometimes when you're fighting, you might say hurtful things when you're not, you don't mean it, especially if you've been married. Yeah, you're going to have fights. So, like I said, that's seeming like the first major fight. And, um, I don't know why they didn't talk about it the night before or even the day of the wedding and talk about it because then I think both of them would have probably been reassured and said yes. But I think Natalie really, really miscalculated there and thought that if she says no now, that Shane's going to run back to her and try to work on it after the show. So, and Shane kind of ultimately said that at the end, saying that I'm not going to wait for her or anything. She embarrassed me pretty much in front of everybody. So I don't blame him. He's obviously hurt. So next couple, I would say that that was like I said, I would have lost big money, or like that was my sure bet. I would have said that I was going to get married, and like I was sure the last season's couples on for most of them, it made sense. Except one, I can't think of their name, but they didn't have any fights or anything like that. So next couple they presented was Sal and Mallory, and I thought there was going to be some because, like I said, I had Jarrett and Ayana second to the bottom. But then looking at the way they edit and talked about things, it just seemed like Sal was not fully invested, even though he did a lot of nice and romantic things for Mallory. So I thought Mallory would have said no because there was her parents not being there, which is big. Sounds like Mallory's family is pretty close, but they did not give the blessing, especially the big sister when she first met Sal didn't give the blessing. It seemed like both sides' parents weren't there either, so that could have been a big thing. So I just thought Sal was going back up. So actually, let me backtrack. So they asked Sal first, and Sal said no, and so Mallory never got to answer. When she kind of recap, and which is really odd. Like they said, they set the vows and how they love each other and everything, but walked down at the end while they were talking, and then hold hands, and then they kind of separated after. Sal went to his family, siblings, and then obviously Mallory didn't have any siblings or anyone like console her or consult with her. So that kind of left, based on the spoiler, my wife told me was the last couple left was Jarrett and Ayana, which was the last one that was there. Um, and so like I said, I thought Ayana would have been the one. That why I put her second to the bottom was because of Jared, where he hasn't shown enough change. I thought, like even before he walks down the aisle, you could see him taking a drink when she asked him not to, and then also, well, did not trust him on trying to um, change and be ready for marriage life. And also, if you recall, if you watch the other episodes in the pods, Jared actually wanted to propose to Mallory first. And Ayana, I mean, it sucks to be her in that sense that you went through this experiment and you weren't the first choice, but you were the second choice. So I that's why I kind of put that based on second to the bottom. Um, why I liked the season better than last season was because I thought it was a better mixture of representation of like different cultures. Like Sal and Mallory, you had the um, Hispanic culture, then you had Dip and Shake, you had the Indian culture, you had Natalie as Asian, and then um, you had Jared and Ayana as African Americans. Um, and then you had Shane and Danielle and Nick as Caucasian. So it was really a great blend, especially the other ones that weren't there or got married. Great blend there. Season one had some, but not as much as this. Like I said, it was like you could see the Indian marriage and tradition, and that's the other thing. I thought like arranged marriage for Dip and Shake, they could probably get past that, but I definitely understand why she said no in that sense. You saw Sal and Mallory um, with the culture there. So I like I said, I thought it was really great to have different cultures and representation in the melting pot in that sense. And like I said, I could relate how Natalie parents met Shane, and then like different cultures blend. So again, if you haven't seen it or you're thinking about it, and hopefully they have season three. Um, but I think there was a study that said that out of all the blind dates or arranged marriage or some type of marriage type of show like this one actually has the second longest marriage out there compared to I think 90 Day Fiance. But I thought that was an interesting statistic. Looking forward to the recap for the follow up. I think it comes out on March 4th. And so definitely going to be interested to see if any of them is actually worked anything out. Sal was really unsure about working things after with Mallory or continue to date. Definitely Shake and Dip is not dating. I would be surprised if they're still friends. Um, I don't think Shane and Natalie is talking as friends or anything. I would be surprised if anyone, maybe Sal and Mallory would continue to try to date because he did ask a date or something in that sense. So go ahead and hit that like button if you like the show. Um, put it in the comments if you're looking forward or what were you surprised with the results, and subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so already, and let me know if you want reactions or something. I'm trying to convince my wife to do reactions on something like this. So do appreciate if you watched through this whole thing, and together we can build a better tomorrow. Thanks.